vent, my friends. This will be an enjoyable experience for all.
Hey, Chris here, week 2 of Blues Roots to Rock. Last week we focused on melody and hook over the two basic forms, the quick change and the slow change. So hopefully you've had a chance to play along in a very minimal way over those two backing tracks. Hopefully you've had a chance to listen intently to if you have Guitar Pro, and play along with those forms in the key of A. Or maybe you're just playing them by yourself in the key of A. Either way, you're getting familiar with the forms, and then you're also starting to take on a different mindset, which is it's not about playing a scale pattern. It's not about necessarily even knowing scale patterns. It's about taking a few notes and creating a melody. It's about thinking of a melody before you think about your guitar scales and patterns and all of those sorts of things. So that's the mindset that I was encouraging all of us to take this week. Forget about scales, forget about positions, forget about all that stuff, and just focus on coming up with a melody over the backing tracks or in your head, over a blues progression, whatever. What's that hook? What's that catchiness that you can put in your mind before you even pick up the guitar? Well, with that mindset, we're going to continue that mindset, but I am going to give you two basic patterns in the key of A pentatonic, A minor pentatonic specifically, that you can use in the context of what we did last week. So we're going to learn those positions or patterns, and then we're going to spend a lot of time dissecting them in a way that you probably haven't done before. We're going to sing them. Even if you don't sing, you'll be singing a little bit. We're going to play the scale or hold a chord while singing a little bit of the pentatonic scale. And then we're going to hold an A note with our voice and play the pentatonic scale. Now, why don't we just use backing tracks? Why don't we use keyboards? Well, we will. We can use all those things. But this is a good way to practice. When you're using your voice, you're engaging your voice, your mind, and your fingers all in sort of the same thing, because you don't always have a backing track queued up when you want to try to do something musical. And by engaging your voice, there are things that you can get at more quickly, and you can engage your mind quicker than if you always have to rely on software or whatever. So, first of all, and I'm going to get on to teaching these patterns, but I'd like to hear from the group, how was it? How was it developing your melodies and hooks? Did it work for you? How was this week for you? Be sure to let me know right now. This first position, a lot of you probably already know, and that's okay. I hope you do. I'm going to play it real slow. A minor pentatonic based off of 5th fret. Here it is, nice and slow. 5th fret, 8th fret, 5th fret, 7th fret, 5th fret, 7th fret, 5th fret, 7th fret, 5th fret, 8th fret, 5th fret, 8th fret. A lot of the same happening on all those strings. 8, 5, 8, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 8, 5. I'll play it a little faster without me talking over it, so that you can get a sense of how simple this thing is laid out. It's great. 2 notes per string. go ahead and go to the tab now and follow along as I play with the tab. We're looking, starting on the very first line there. 5, 8, 5, 7, 5, 7. At the top, this is line 2, measure 4. One more time. This is the first 2 lines. 5, 8, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 8, 5, 8, 8, 5, 7, 7, 5. So, a very boxy position. And what we want to keep in mind is that there is so much music in this shape. So much music. I mean, so many of the blues greats relied so heavily on this. And it's great that there's so much music available there. But we want to make sure that we're not treating it as just notes. We talked a lot about this last time in the context of hooks. We don't just want to play it We don't just want to do that. That's boring. It's not just a scale. We want to treat it as notes, and the scale, it makes those notes accessible. But it's not just a scale. Really, really, and that'll make more sense as we continue to go on in this. But what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to develop 4-note groups. Remember we talked about 4-note hooks last time. And it's really easy to do this in this scale because we have 2 notes per string. So we can sort of work 2 strings at a time. So go back to the tab. We've got the first measure can be a 4-note grouping. There's a lot you can do right there. We'll get into more phrasing ideas and stuff later, but those 4 notes can mean a lot when you only have those 4 notes. The next group of 4, you could do 5, 7, 5, 7 on your A and D string. So that would be the last 2 notes of measure 1 and the first 2 notes of measure 2. So we have you could take the second set of 4, starting on the D string. So we have you can take the next group of 4. And then the last group. I mean, even right there, there's some sort of giveaway things that start to happen. Sorry. By using boxes, those are the very beginnings of creating your own licks. And it's really neat to be able to start with these boxes, because once we start adding in other things like bends and pull-offs and hammer-ons, which we'll be doing much more next week using these same tools, or using these positions, your phrasing starts to become much more lyrical in the context of a scale position. So let's go over those boxes one more time. This is just a way to think about the scale. And even that is kind of musical. Now, some of you may already be asking, why didn't he tab that out? I didn't tab it out because it is a derivative of something that is already tabbed out. And I want to spoon feed you concepts and ideas in this series. I do not want to tell you exactly what to play. So keep that in mind. The tab, when we get into the actual artists, there's going to be a blend of play exactly this. But the bulk of this series really deals more with concepts. I'm going to give you the scale, and then I want you to experiment. It doesn't have to be exactly what I'm playing. The mindset of the blues man is take a concept, take a simple concept, take a couple notes, take a scale pattern, and do your own thing with it. Put your own emotion in it. So, circling back, I asked a little while ago how it was going. And I want to hear from you. How's it going?
So far, we've only got one response.
What?
Come on, people. We need to know. This isn't a question, so ignore the question aspect, but it's from TM Danza, and he says, I found the idea of being free from scales enlightening. The idea of getting feel into the guitar sound is not easy,
Right.
but I can see the benefit. Better than the constant noodling.
Yeah, absolutely. Good, TM Danza. I agree. That's exactly what I hope to hear. Is there anybody else that has any feedback on how the journey was this week? And I mean, be honest. Was it it is difficult to start this because we're so ingrained that buy this book, take this lesson, watch this video. It's not as much about that as you might think. It's about really being musical with a little bit. Any other feedback?
We've got some from Ronald Knorr, who says, all these concepts, notes, phrasing, etc., can they be applied to the acoustic guitar?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I figured that. So while you guys are typing this out and answering Chris, can you also let us know how many times you practiced last week?
Yeah.
Were you able to do it every day? Were you able to only do it once? And if you couldn't practice, how come? So we can try to tweak things for you. Okay, Bain says, I'm a beginner and it's starting to feel great already.
Cool.
The Bravery Girl says, it connects you better to the instrument, I think.
Yeah. And are you guys able to take advantage of the guided practice? I know the Guitar 101 guys are really enjoying the guided practice. I'm wondering if it's been as effective here. Well, I guess we're only 1 week in, but
HMA 269 says, the light bulb is glowing brighter. Thanks for all you were teaching us.
excellent. Okay, cool.
Marco says he's been practicing every other day.
Okay.
So, oh boy, there's a lot. I listened to some blues and just picked out some melodies without thinking of scales per se, and it worked pretty good.
Yeah, great. Awesome.
Jay Caputo, or Capito, whatever, says he's practiced every day or almost every day.
Very cool.
Larry says, I practice every evening for about an hour, depending on work. He liked the the guided practice.
Okay.
Okay, so it seems like people are practicing pretty good.
Good. We got some trackers here. Very cool.
Oh, David says he practices 1 hour every day on this lesson.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, you're practicing that much being musical. That's very, very cool. All right. So, we've got this going on. Now, I'm going to show you another way to play the pentatonic scale. It's sort of one pattern, but it scales multiple positions, which you can and you should eventually learn all the pentatonic patterns up and down the neck, but we're not going to focus on that because that's something that you don't really need to be taught, right? Like you can just go read some tablature and learn the rest of the scales. Again, I'm focusing more on mindset and approach And so learn all the positions on your own time. This one, though, is a cool way to connect different parts of the neck. And a lot of blues players tend to do something like this because they like moving around the neck. It gives them this sort of horizontal approach, and it also gets you out of a particular 4-fret grouping with the pentatonic scale. So look down at the third line. Start on fret 0. We're going to go 0, 3, 0, 2. 0, 3, 0, 3, 0, 2. Then we have the next measure, we have 5, 7, 5, 7. So 0, 3, 0, 2. Again. Notice with the fingering I'm using. It's not that important, but it might help you play it initially well. Second finger, first finger, and then first, third, first, third. Those are the first 2 measures of the second exercise. So 2 separate areas, 2 separate boxes sort of built in. Then we go 9, 12, 10, 13. So we have okay. Again from the bottom. Oops. Okay, then the last part, we go all the way up to the 12th fret. So we've got that's it. So we've gone all the way from open A to high E on the 12th fret. Down. So you get the idea and you see the purpose behind this, is that even if you're not that familiar with your scale patterns, you now can move up and down the neck, and there's a certain freedom that you feel in these little areas. It's really, really a cool way to play, and it immediately engages your musical mind, I feel like, to think about scales like this, where you're not locked. That feels much more musical to me even than this. Because there's built-in slides. You have to, you don't have to slide there, but there's built-in opportunities for you to adjust and make things musical because of it. And of course, you can always combine the two. See what I'm doing? I'm taking this scale taking different portions of them, here, here, and here. And I happen to know this expanded area, or you do now, and so you can use them both together, but it gets you out of just, I'm just here. You know, great place to start. And when you're learning all your scale patterns, it's extremely beneficial to know and to figure out how they're connected so you can navigate from one to the other. And this one that I've just showed you blends parts of many pentatonic full patterns all together. So when you go back and learn all those, you'll be able to sort of point back to this and go, ah, I remember that. Do we have a question?
Just a quick one. JD Davis says, is this scale all in A minor?
A minor pentatonic, yep. Now, even though it's A minor, we're talking about in the context of blues, and so this really does work over A minor, of course. But it also works, and we'll get into this a little bit more in later lessons, it also works over A7, as long as you play the right notes, which has the major third. But listen, I mean, that sounds pretty cool, and then now, I did leave a little part off if you really want to go all the way down. If you look at the tab, last line, I'm going to play the whole thing. Okay, all the way up, all the way down. Okay, then we go 3 on the low E, 0, 3, 0. So we have this kind of some cool licks you can do there with your open A7. But we're not about teaching licks. We're just giving you ideas so that you can come up with your own licks. So the whole thing, including the bottom, once with the tab. So, like I said, we're playing these over A7, even though it's a minor pentatonic. And if you don't do that well or tastefully, that's why choosing your notes is so important and using your ear while you're doing this. That's why it's so important. But they do work together if you're playing them with taste, for sure. So those are the two positions. Got a few questions, and then we'll move on to the vocal mind hand application.
Yeah, and just so you know, guys, we're only taking questions right now about the actual exercises he's playing. So anything that's kind of a little more out there, we'll do at the end. I don't know if you're going to want to answer this question or not, but I thought I'd throw it up. Ezidim asks, what about the other keys for this particular scale? Is moving it around the fretboard something you want to cover? Or do you want them just to not worry about that for now?
Well, other keys, you know, so if you want to play, we'll go to this one. Here's A7. You want to play it in B7, move it up. Works. You move it anywhere. Just play your, this is an E4, so here's my E7. You could even play it down there. But yeah, you can move it all around. If you know this bar chord, G7. C7. And I'm doing a little bit more phrasing than we've gone over. Next week is our big phrasing week. And I'll break down some of the stylistic things I'm doing and show you how you can naturally do it too. But playing in other keys, that's the beautiful thing about the guitar, is you can move things around. Now this one, because it incorporates some open strings at the beginning, you just have to figure out where that is. You know, open is just another fret, right? So, you know, it's, if you want to play it here, so I was playing in D. I was playing in D minor pentatonic there. I moved everything up 5 frets. You just have to make sure that you're accounting for that open thing there. But everything's totally movable. Everything on the guitar is movable. And if you know where the right notes are, the root notes are, and in this case, it's here and here. So if you know the name of that note, you know what key you can play in. And in this one, you start on the root, right? So open A. So if you go up here, you start here, that's a C. So I'm playing in C pentatonic. Or, there you go. Hopefully that answered your question.
All right, Craig Dollinger says, should you navigate the connecting pattern from the root notes?
I would navigate the connecting pattern. That's one way you could do it. That's certainly a good way to think about it. I would and are you talking specifically about this pattern, or are you talking about just connecting patterns in general? Because connecting patterns in general, yeah, doing it from the root notes is actually really helpful. But if you're doing it with this one, I would navigate it based on exactly what the tab says. We're not really conscious necessarily of what our roots are doing here. We're conscious more about, oh, I got these 4 notes here, I got these 4 notes here, I got these 4 notes. So, I mean, it's good to know where your roots are, but we're connecting based on just sort of moving around the neck. However, if you are, here's a really good example, and we're not going to really seal this up here, but let's say we're playing this pentatonic position, and we want to go down to a different one. So that's a different altogether position. By you knowing, I connected them together by this root. And just relative to this root, here's where I'm starting. I'll do that again. Now, a lot of times I like to do, when I'm practicing connecting these patterns together, this isn't all that musical, but it gets you familiar with where you're going, is to go up one and down another. So we're using those two different patterns together, and I'm practicing going up one, down the other.
Okay, one last quick question, and then we'll move on. This is from Jason Bailey. He says, A minor is the same fingering as C major?
Yes, very good observation. Very good observation. So the pentatonic scale, and this is a really interesting thing about the pentatonic scale. If you look at a piano keyboard and you play the black notes only, you are playing a pentatonic scale from root to root. But depending on where you start in there, it can either be a minor pentatonic based off of a root or a major pentatonic based off of the root. The minor and the major pentatonics have different tones in them, but share the same notes. I know that's a little confusing. Let's look at this. So, if I were to take this position here and, go A minor or A7 all together, right? A minor, clearly. If I take the exact same notes and I focus on C major, so I'll just play C to C. Now, weird, huh? Same notes. So here's the deal. Minor pentatonic is made up of 1 flat 3, right? 4, 5, flat 7, 1. Minor pentatonic, again. 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, 1. Again, 1, flat 3, 4, 5, 7, 1. Memorize it. 1, flat 3, 4, 5, 7, 1. 1, flat 3, 4, 5, 7, 1. The C major pentatonic is, we're calling this 1 now, right? C is 1. A is not 1 anymore because we're looking at it in terms of major. We've got 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 1. So there's no 7, there's no 4 in the major. Easier to see when we do it from this position. So yeah, A minor and C major share the same notes when you're talking about pentatonic scales. And it goes way deeper than that. Because A minor and C major are relative keys. They use the same notes all together. And it just so happens that the way the pentatonic scale is constructed, because it's based and derived off of the notes of the black keys of the piano, it just so happens that they use different tones when you're talking about them in the context. And there's so many cool things you can do with this. But very good observation. And you're going to, using that is going to be a huge tool for you later on. So good work. Any other questions? Okay. So, we're going to get familiar with the sound of the pentatonic scale in our voices and in our brains without having to play it. So, we're going to start A minor. And we're going to see if we can sing A minor pentatonic. Don't worry if you don't sing very well. Do it on La. La, 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 la. Learn that sound. Get it in your head. This is going to help with melody and hook development, because once this is in your head, you have this in your head to start from. La 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 la. See if you can go up a little higher. La 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 la. Again, nobody's trying to be a professional singer here. We're trying to program the notes in our minds. La 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 la. Now, as you're singing it and not playing it, there are going to be things that happen with your voice and in your mind that are going to be more musical than you maybe thought. Listen again. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La la la. Let's try doing the same thing. This is a little harder because there's some notes that don't exist here. La 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 la. La 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 la, particularly that second note. La 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 la. That's hard, but this is the drill. This is what is going to help you be musical in your head before you get it in your hands. If you are familiar with the notes accessible in your head, and this is different than blowing through a scale right away on the guitar, because your mind is more musical than your muscle memory. Always. That's a huge, huge thing to remember. I'll say it again. Your mind is way more musical than your muscle memory. Muscle memory is generally not musical because it's programmed, not well thought through. It's easy to do, so I'm going to noodle around on it. Your mind memorizes things, but it doesn't have, it's a much more nimble muscle than all these mechanical things. So keep that in mind. That's the first drill. I'm going to stop if there's any questions. Okay, if there's no questions, we're going to reverse this now. Now, we're going to simply we're going to sing an A, and then we're going to use these positions and play around. Play around. Whoa. You're holding the A, that's all you're doing. Whoa. Don't just play the scale up and down. Play parts of it, like I'm doing here. You don't have to be licking, it's not necessarily noodling, although it is maybe a little. It's more like you're getting familiar with what different notes sound like over the root. So you're singing. So if you don't like the way you sing, that's okay. All you got to do is be able to hit the pitch. There's two ways. There's two things that we did here. There's I play a chord and I sing the scale. If this is hard for you to do, it's because you need to internalize the notes in your mind more. So sing along with the scale. If you have to go down an octave and start over, that's okay. It might sound like this. La 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 la. It's actually really good ear training. La 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 la. Do it on this one. La 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 la. Or if you have to drop down, no big deal. La 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 la. Once you've done that quite a bit, once you're singing along with it, once you're getting the notes in your head, and we're doing this in the context of A minor right now. If you feel challenged and if you feel like a challenge and you want to go a little bit further, try doing the same thing over C major. And see what happens, right? Like, that's not something we're going to go over in the context of this because it's outside the context of blues, sort of. But given the question we had earlier, it's going to help you understand the notes and the relationship between the notes better. So, now what we're going to do is we're going to pull out the backing track. Now, the backing track, same as last week, is in the key of E. Now, wait a minute. We've spent all this time in the key of A. Why do we keep switching back and forth? Here's the reason. Already, I want to force us to take what we're doing in one key that we feel like we're really comfortable with, and then yank us out of our comfort zone and force us to be musical. What that does mean is that we're going to have to figure out how to apply what we just learned to the key of E. Well, so I'm going to roll the track, and without tab, we're just going to do it. We're going to figure it out using what I addressed earlier with one of the questions. All right, well, I know this position. That sounds awful. Do not play A minor over E minor. Doesn't work. Right now it doesn't. So we got to play this position in E. Or this pattern in E. There's two places to do that. Up here at the 12th fret, same thing, you're just moving the whole thing up. Or open. Or if we want to do our walk up the neck thing, we can do that too. It's right here. So we can go all the way up the neck. We've got a lot of space. Connect that down here. Really, really cool. So, again, in E, we've got this going on here. Remember, this is just another fret. And then we've got this. Same thing as this, just moved up to 12th fret. So, here is where focusing week by week is going to really help us out. Last week, I told you, don't worry about scale patterns. Worry about melody. Worry about, don't be confined to what you think you already know on the guitar. Think of something catchy. Think of something that doesn't rely on your muscle memory, that doesn't rely on scales. Start with your voice in your head and go here. This week, we're going to come back around and do it sort of the opposite way. This week, I want you to focus on this over the backing track. Figure out your hook, sure, But what I want you to do is play rhythmically these ideas, these scale ideas, over the backing track. Start in the key of A with your singing, rhythmically, of course, without the track, then move to E and practice it over the track. Your practicing might look something like this. You don't have to play the scale all the way up and down, but you're going to notice certain notes sound good over certain chords. This sounds, in many cases, much worse than the hook thing that we were working on the first week. Play slow. Start by playing slow. Repeat some notes. What areas sound good over the changes? Remember, work them over the quick and the slow change blues forms so you get familiar what parts of the neck, what parts of the scale patterns work over which chords. That's a very important thing to experiment with and get familiar with in your own ears. Like, that doesn't sound so good. That's not a very good area of the scale. So oh, that sounds really good over the 5 chord, over that B. Sounds good over the E. Sounds good over all of it. That's a really nice, safe area. Make sure whatever you're doing, you're being rhythmic. Don't play out of time, ever, right now. Well, there's times to purposely play out of time, but right now we want to stay locked in with the groove. Wrong note there. Okay, now, I realize this is almost dead on to what I told you not to do last week. That's because I wanted you to think in one direction last week, and I'm having you think in a slightly different direction this week. Don't abandon the other idea, but focus on this week. In the weeks to follow, we're going to be combining both approaches in very artistic and interesting and cool ways. So you also notice, though, I'm not trying. I'm phrasing a little bit. I'm playing rhythmically, but I'm not trying to go for a hook. What is fun is when you have a hook already, like we worked on last week. Remember, we did something like. It was something like that. That was our only hook. And by going back to this and then circling back around to some of the scales, it can actually be kind of interesting. Listen. see how powerful that is? Now, not all of that was good, but you can see how blending those two ideas together, all of a sudden, it doesn't sound like mindless noodling. Because you have the knowledge, you have the comfortability with moving around the neck and throwing in little notes, but you're grounding it in something good, in something catchy. Da 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 da. You know, you can do whatever you want on that point as long as you come back to that. And so many good guitar players. I mean, that's the first thing I noticed when I really started listening to good guitar players was, man, there's always a hook. And that's why we started there. So, take your scales positions this week. Get familiar with the limited amounts of things that I've given you in A and in E. And then go back to last week in your practice time and incorporate a hook along with this stuff. So, that's all I've got for content today. I enjoyed giving this to you. Now I'll take some questions relevant to the lesson.
Before we do that, just remember, everyone, if you want the tab, the backing tracks,
And the guided practice.
yeah, it's all under the practice tab. If you were watching on live stream and you're not a JamPlay member, you won't be able to access this or the archive, so it's a compelling reason to sign up as soon as possible.
Yeah, you can't really track with us. This is, I don't know, I'd say maybe pretty lousy entertainment.
Yeah.
If you're just watching. But being able to interact, being able to send messages to the teachers during the week via the site, interact with other people on the site who are using it, who are going through the same course you are, doing badges, earning jam points, meeting other guitar players in that way also. There's a lot of cool benefits to being a member and being able to track with this on more than just sort of a watch it once and then you're done.
I concur, my good sir. All right. Our first question is from Jay Caputo 1 again, and he says, do I have to change scales with the chord changes?
Not this week. This week we're worried about, so we're playing an E in this case, and rather than think, oh, the chord's changing, I got to play a different scale, no. What we want to think about instead is which area of the scale works best in your experimentation over which chords. So we're playing the same scales over all the chords, which is perfectly acceptable in blues. But and you notice I touched on that a little bit earlier where there were certain areas of this that were better over like the E chord or the A chord or the B chord. You know, and we found this little sweet spot which seemed to sound good over all of them. But like right here, did not sound very good over the B, I think it was. I don't remember which one it was. But as you play along and you play slowly the sections of the scale, you'll start to realize, okay, that part sounds good. This part doesn't. And that's going to be embedded into your memory like, ooh, I'm playing over the 5 chord. I better go to this position or this part of that pattern and maybe riff on that a little bit. And you'll get there. It's part of the musical discovery process. But no, we don't need to do, there's ways to do blues where you do a different scale per chord, but that's not what we're working on in this context.
Okay, Jackie G20 says, can you also use major pentatonics?
Yeah, you can. You totally can. So, in fact, let me just play it mildly over this E. Now, where it gets really cool, I realize I'm treading in uncomfortable waters for some of you here, but you can use both at the same time. And we'll get into some of that a little bit later when we get into our notes between the notes idea. But it's so fun to be able to do this and experiment. Listen, it's a really cool sound. minor, major, minor, major, major, minor, major, minor. I mean, it's a whole new level of flavor. It's a whole new way to think about things. But yeah, use them both. Use one or the other. It's a really, that's one of my favorite things about blues, is that there's so many rules to break. If you're not comfortable with that, that's certainly beyond the scope of this lesson, but fun at the same time.
Somebody just asked, would the Dorian notes fit also?
Absolutely. Dorian is beautiful in this context. Well, because Dorian, you're borrowing from the major scale, right? So Dorian notes within the context of E, right? It's that natural sixth. Sounds beautiful. Let me do that again. That was awful. Ready? Here we go. Ah, major third. So Mixolydian would work well too. Dorian. So yeah, Dorian notes, Mixolydian notes. I mean, and this is going to be in a few weeks. We're doing a lesson on notes between the notes, and you start to realize that with blues, yeah, you can lock yourself into a mode or a major scale or a minor scale, or you can have a general framework, which I like to consider as the pentatonic patterns, and then just play a bunch of different notes, but play them strategically. And I'm sort of doing that already, in that, yeah, you got your Dorian sixth, you got your major seven. You know, we're getting into some of the stuff that we're going to do later, but yeah, I mean, the blues is so flexible. It's about placement, and that's why I'm from the very beginning harping on this phrasing idea. It's how you play the notes, because really, in the right context, all of them work.
Okay, we have a kind of little more general question here from Les Paul Guy. He says, when you have a melody in mind, how can I determine which key to play it in?
Well, that's a really good question, because to me, and this still happens to me, like if I have a melody swarming around in my head and then I go pick up my guitar and I play a chord, a lot of times I like lose the melody because the chord I played was so drastically different than the key that I was singing it in my head. So what I generally have to do when I do that is, if I'm playing, I'll just pick a melody like da 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 da. I know that's an E because I've been singing in E. Here, let's get the E out of my head. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. Da 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 da. Let's just say that's the melody. Da 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 da. I don't really know what key that's in. So if I do this, da 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 da. That doesn't work. The key for me is being able to retain the harmonic context that I hear in my head, even when I'm hunting and pecking for the right chord. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. It's in B. So that's really how I do it. I play a chord until something sounds right. Maybe that's not the first one. Da 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 da. Maybe da 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 da. No. Da 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 da. No. Da 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 da. No, none of that really works. Da 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 da. Oh, that actually kind of works. So it could be, and we're talking about relative majors and minors again. Da 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 da. Once you decide on the key, you can use chords within the key and create a nice harmonic structure. You know, around that, you know, it sounds great. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. I mean, that's the fun stuff, right? You're taking a melody and you're harmonizing it. That's what I do. But being familiar with your keys, being familiar with the chords within your keys is extremely helpful in that context.
Okay, so this one is even a little more general, but still sort of on topic. Spot MFD says, what is the best way to play outside the box? I have memorized all the scales and modes, but I still can't play anything outside of the scale box.
Yeah. That's a big trouble and that's one of the main reasons that as a player, I've tried to not, I know scale patterns, but I always think melody first. Always. I've never been able to play something out of the box by using a box, right? You have to let your mind hear it first. And then once your mind hears it, then you figure out how to break the box. Theory isn't really that helpful. I mean, theory is somewhat helpful with that. I'm trying to think of a good example that isn't just totally weird, jazzy junk. And not that I think jazz is junk, but it's just, I'm trying to keep it a little bit in context to what we're doing. Well, here's a good example. And this is a small example, but let's say we're playing in A. And you want to play something sort of out there, but you can't because you've just got this sound in your head. One thing that's kind of neat, and this is something that I've sort of experimented with, and again, I always do it singing first, but da 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 da. What if, we'll just try it, see if it sounds good. What if I did this, but I just moved it up a half step, the whole thing, until it started to make sense again. Or maybe I can join it together somehow, like, ooh. That sounds kind of neat. Let's put the track on in E. We'll port that to E and see what it does. It's kind of sucked. Let's try it again. I'm going to do it slower. Okay, I got to nail that right there. No? So that's right there. I got to get that down. A little bit of suckishness there. Let's try it again. So that actually sort of works. I am definitely going outside. Those notes, I mean, they fit in some context somewhere, but I'm purposely going out and then coming back in. You always have to have an entry and an exit point. But I started with an idea in my head, hey, let's walk up chromatically with this form and see what happens, and then execute it. It never really happens though if you can't break the box. You can't play outside the box unless you break it. I hope that was helpful. And a simplistic explanation enough that I didn't lose people.
Well, and without taking 6.5 hours.
Sure.
Okay, so we have a question from Eric Zhu who says, how do you achieve your blues tone, amp settings, effects, etc.?
It's really funny. This tone, right before we came in to the studio, we have an 11 rack, and I just picked a preset, turned off a couple of the effects, and that was it. Like I didn't really craft it. Now I do spend a lot of time crafting tone, and so I kind of know what I'm looking for. But this particular one, I just sort of plugged in and turned off some effects, and that seemed to work. I will say this though, blues tone, and really tone in general, is so much about phrasing and touch. So much. Here's a really good way to illustrate this. I do this sometimes when I'm teaching other things. I can't play like this at all. Now, if I try to do this, I'll keep the pickups the same, and I try to play, I don't have the same touch or the level of being able to do anything. So let's just try to play that scale. I'm sure this is how a lot of beginners feel. I know I did when I first started. So nobody's commenting on my tone now.
I am. It's beautiful.
Unless they're saying it, but you get the point. Like, I have no touch. I have no, even if the tone is in the fingers. And because I've practiced and phrased and mused, I can take an ordinary sort of haphazard, turn this on, turn the reverb down, we're good enough. Then all of a sudden the tone means something. Now I'm using a telly on the neck pickup, but it sounds good on the bridge pickup too. And I'm using I honestly don't even know what kind of amp it is. It sounds sort of like a Vox with an overdrive pedal in front of it, maybe. But I will say that tone, especially when you're playing like cleaner like this, it's so much about the fingers and the way you dig in with the pick and how you bend notes. And we're going to spend the whole session on that next week, getting this guy in shape.
All right. Well, that is all the questions we have for today. Everyone is, I think, all tired out. Too much information to digest, so do your homework.
Yeah, good questions this week. Good. Okay, so be sure to visit the guided practice. Be sure to work on the scale patterns, and then insert your mindset that we worked on starting last week, which is those hooks. Melody first. Incorporate melody into your scale patterns. If there are no more questions, we'll see you next week for week 3. Practice up.